Yes, I'd like to bring the April 19th, 2023 Planning Advisory Commission meeting to order. Official start of this meeting is 9 a.m. If you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you please silence or turn off your cell phones, thank you. I remind those in the audience and those watching on TV that this is the first hearing of any rezoning, text change, or special exception request brought before us today. We will first hear a reading of the staff report for the case by planning staff and ask the applicant to provide a brief overview of the request. We will then give the opportunity for anyone in the audience to speak for or against that request or to inquire about said request. The commissioners will have any needed discussion on the case. Once a motion is made and seconded by the commission, a vote will take place and a recommendation will be rendered. The case will go back to the planning department for their independent recommendation. If a favorable recommendation is given, then the case is forwarded to the city council with two independent recommendations. If the planning department makes a recommendation for denial, the applicant will have 10 days from receipt of the letter stating the denial to notify the clerk of council that they are requesting to be placed on the city council's agenda. The City Council of Columbus will hold a public meeting called the first reading. Said council shall consider the case, review Planning Advisory Commission and Planning Department recommendations, and hear discussions on the matter. Council will make a final decision at a second meeting called the second reading. Our first agenda today is to approve the minutes from the previous meeting. Does anyone have any comments or corrections regarding the minutes? All right. Would a person like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
All right. All in favor, raise your right hand. All righty. That brings us to our first case of the day. REZN-03-23-0514, a request to rezone 5.85 acres of land located at 5032 Milgen Court and 15 and 11 Masterbuilt Court. Current zoning is general commercial. Proposed zoning is light manufacturing industrial. The proposed use is industrial warehouse. Eric Ranney is the applicant. The property is located in Council District 5. Could we please hear from staff?
This is a 5.85 acre property. The current land use is light manufacturing industrial, and the future land use designation is light manufacturing industrial. This is compatible with the existing land use, and it is served by all city services. This property shall include a Category C buffer, and the surrounding zoning is general commercial to the north and south, and light manufacturing industrial to the east and west. 14 property owners were notified, and there was no comments or calls regarding this case.
All right. Is there any questions from commissioners concerning the staff report? All right. Will the applicant please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and give us a brief overview of your request?
Good morning. I'm Leah Braxton, 125 Almond Ridge Drive, Fortson, Georgia. I'm here on behalf of Eric Ranney.
All right. Yeah, would you give us an overview of what you're planning on doing with the property?
Excuse me?
Yeah, would you give us a brief overview of what you're planning on doing?
Sure. This is a warehouse that was built, 75, 78, and I honestly think it's been used as LMI. It's been used as a warehouse for a good long while. Masterbuilt is the current occupant. They sold it a few years ago, but the adjacent building they owned, and then they bought this building. Their main building is zoned LMI already. And then this building, which is more warehousey than the other building, it doesn't have a corporate feel, is zone GC. And then the vacant parcels across the street are zone GC. So it's really just a cleanup of what, honestly, the utilization right now would fall more into that pattern. It needs to be LMI. We've shown it to several prospects, and there's some folks out there, but they need it to be LMI. So that's what we're looking for, is just to be compatible with what, using it for like manufacturing type facility.
Any questions for the applicant? All right. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak in favor of this request? Is there anyone in the audience like to speak against this request? All right. Would a commissioner like to make a motion concerning this? Yes.
I make a motion regarding case REZN 03230514, a request to rezone 5.85 acres of land located at 5032 Milton Court and 5-11 Masterbuilt Court. Current zoning is general commercial. Proposed zoning is light manufacturing industrial. The proposed use is industrial warehouse. I move that we approve it because it's compatible with the existing land uses.
Would the commissioner like a second? Thank you. All in favor, raise your right hand. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. That brings us to our second case of the day, REZN 03230515, a request to rezone .48 acres of land located at 5335 Miller Road. Current zoning is single-family residential 1. Proposed zoning is residential office. The proposed use is a church parking lot. Marius and Daniel Hiddison are the applicants. This property is located in Council District 5, Crab. Could we please hear from staff?
The current land use for this property is residential, and the future land use designation is single-family residential. It is served by all city services, and as stated earlier, the intent is to use it for the church parking lot that is adjacent to the property. This will also include a Category C buffer, and the surrounding zoning is single-family residential to the north, light manufacturing industrial to the south, single-family residential to the east, and residential office to the west.
All right, thank you. Any questions? Okay, Mr. Dudley?
I guess this is for staff. I was just a little confused by the sign when I went out there and looking at it on the map. It looks like the sign was in front of a lot next to the church with a small house in front of it, but the actual lot we're talking about is behind that house. And it's just that there's no street front, so you've got to put the sign.
Correct.
Okay, so that's just a vacant lot.
That
right
was
now.
a visibility
Okay,
All right.
decision.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff?
They're
Yes.
not, are there plans to tear down that house, or it's just going to stay there?
I believe it's just going to stay there, but I believe someone on behalf of the applicant is here
Oh, okay.
today.
All right. Would the applicant please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and give us an overview of your request?
Good morning, I'm Norman Hardman. I'm a realtor with Prestige Property Brokers, address 5656 Veterans Parkway, Columbus, Georgia 31904. I'm representing the applicants for this rezoning process. So they do own and will continue to have the residential house that's there, but they have some additional acreage that they do not need nor are they using on that. They sit on 0.95 acres. So we will have close to ½ acres that sits onto the property where the church owns, actually behind a parsonage house, and immediately to the right is where the church parking lot is. And so they're going to, the plans are to rezone that and then connect that to the church's property to use for additional parking.
Any questions for the applicant? All right. Is anybody in the audience in favor of this said request? Anybody in this audience would like to speak against this request? Is there any additional discussion among commissioners before we attempt to make a motion? All right, would a commissioner like to make a motion? Yes, Mr. King.
Okay, with regards to case number REZN 03230515, this request to rezone .48 acres of land located at 5335 Miller Road. Current zoning's SFR1, proposed zoning is RO. I'll make a motion that we approve it because it's compatible with existing land uses in the area.
All right, got a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All righty, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. That brings us to our third and final case of the day, REZN-03-23-0544. a request to rezone 3.10 acres of land located at 6395 Salmon Road. Current zoning is planned unit development PUD. Proposed zoning, proposed zoning is planned unit development condition change buffers. Proposed use is retail strip center. Lakshmi Karthik is the applicant. The property is located in Council District 6. Alan, could we please hear from staff?
As stated, this is a planned unit development and will remain a planned unit development. In order to change one of the buffer conditions, they do have to go through this rezoning process. The current land use designation is mixed use, and the future land use designation is neighborhood commercial. The average annual daily trips would increase to 80 trips, and the level of service would remain at a level B. There are city services here. The current buffer requirement in the PUD is stated in ordinance 1113 that the development shall adhere to the characteristics of the color site plan by High Grove Partners LLC, dated December 16th, 2010, which you received in your packets, that site plan. The surrounding zoning is neighborhood commercial and residential estate to the north. To the south is planned unit development, part of the PUD that we are speaking about right now. To the east is general commercial, and to the west is also that same planned unit development. 38 property owners were notified. On the staff report, it says that there is 0 responses in opposition. That has changed. There is 1 email that was received in opposition of this.
Okay. Thank you. Is any questions for the staff? Yes, Mr. Dudley.
Just as far as the 2010 site plan that was incorporated in the ordinance in 2011, that shows two buildings, and then the new site plan shows 3 proposed buildings. Is that still kind of within what the original plan called for? Is that close enough?
It is close enough, correct.
Okay, thanks.
All right, any other? Yes, Ms. Weekly.
Could you tell us what the opposition was?
Yes, I can. I've got that email in front of me. This is from a resident of the Hickory Grove subdivision. They're not in favor of this type of project. They're concerned about the number of commercial buildings, the 3, with the proposed parking and the increased traffic that could come from here. They have lived here for 18 months, and they have concerns about a traffic light that was promised in December 2021, and I can't speak on that. But they are worried about the buffer and whether or not there'll be trees, or if it will be just undisturbed, or if it'll be cleared. And they want to know how the trees will affect their property values.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Ms. Brown.
Can you clarify exactly what the requirements are? I know there's a fence around this property, but do trees have to be added?
This would follow the Highway 80 overlay, and that would take the place of the buffer requirement from the original ordinance. And that states that all developments shall be landscaped, screened, and buffered. In addition to these requirements, 20 tree density units per acre for all non-residential development shall be required. A minimum 15-foot wide landscape strip shall be provided adjacent to all road right-of-ways in developments with the exception of RE 10, 5, 1, RT, SFR1, SFR2, and SFR3 and 4. A minimum 10-foot wide landscape strip shall be provided between primary developments and adjacent outparcels. And a minimum of 1 large maturing tree per 40 linear feet of frontage shall be planted in the 15-foot wide landscape strip buffer.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Dudley.
So this is basically more trees than would be required under the existing ordinance, according to communication from staff.
This would be more stringent than the original PUD.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions for staff? All right, would the applicant please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and give us a brief overview of your request?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lakshmi Karthik, and I reside at 7240 Standing Boy Road. So we are trying to do a neighborhood-friendly development that is more going to cater towards the residents and all the development that's going on in the Midland area. So the reason we have asked to kind of help us with the buffer is so that we can add a little more parking and more outdoor seating where families could really spend more quality time. So that's the request.
there any questions for the applicant? Yes, Mr. Dudley?
Could you address some of the concerns expressed in the email? Do you know anything about the traffic light, for example, or the
So
other
we are
issues?
aware that there is a traffic light that's supposed to be coming sometime this summer, but I don't know much more than that.
I can comment on that. The traffic light is being constructed now. They're doing the initial work on that, and it should be finished soon.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions for the applicant?
What type of businesses are you proposing to go into these buildings?
More like coffee shops and restaurants, maybe a pizza shop, a nail salon, something where the local residents can, basically.
All right, any other questions for the applicant? Is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak in favor of this request? Does anybody in the audience like to speak against this request? Yes, ma'am, please come forward to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
My name's Nancy Gates, and I live in the Hickory Grove subdivision. I live at 6333 Shagbark Lane, Midland, and I'm the one that wrote the email. And I've only lived in this area, I've moved from North Georgia, so I've seen when something abuts a subdivision. And just to clarify, there is not a fence around the entire subdivision. So my property, which is in the newer section, looks out on Beaver Run, and any cars going by can look right down into our subdivision. And I'm concerned about 100 and some spaces, not knowing what the occupants are gonna be. People can just walk in and out. Why would we reduce the buffer? I don't understand. And then there'd be dumpsters there. Is it gonna be 24 hours? I mean, I'm an insurance agent by trade. I work from home, but I'm just saying, it's not something I want right up next to me if we're gonna, reduce buffers. It doesn't make sense.
Yes, ma'am.
So.
Hold on, I think we have a question. You've got a question, Mr. Dudley?
Well, more a comment than a question, I guess. That area is already zoned for, or commercial is already allowed to be built in that area, I believe. I guess that's confirmation from staff.
I just think that if we could at least get a better kind of buffer rather than just trees that could die or get hit by a tornado or whatever. I don't want people just walking over from getting their nails done into the subdivision or throwing their trash into our neighborhood. And I wanted to clarify that there's not a fence all the way around.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions for the applicant? Or does anybody else like to speak against this request? All right, sir, you can come forward. State your name and address for the record.
My name is Harlan Price. My residence is 241 Tiger Way in Fortson, and I am the future owner's property's architect. I would just want to make sure y'all understand, as you already do, that the only thing we're asking for is a shrinking of the buffer zone. I know that if it was strictly a commercial zoning instead of a PUD, the typical setback for that, there's like a 3-tiered with the most of being 15. I think we're asking, and I do believe, last time I was out there, on our actual piece of property, there is a fence around at least the part that's closest to the houses, so I'm not sure why there's some comment. There's not, the part that they own has the fence around the 3 sides that back up to the neighborhood. The fence is already there, which actually would allow, under a typical commercial thing, would allow an 8-foot buffer. We're not going to go back to 8 foot because we recognize we want to be respectful to the neighborhood. So we're just asked to go back. I think right now there's a 25-foot buffer as part of the PUD. We want to go back to either 10 or 15. And we have no problem with the landscaping requirements that's required for those buffer depths. And just as y'all know, if we're denied, it's not going to change what businesses go there because that's already allowed. All we're doing is ask for a buffer to give us a little more room for parking and outdoor seating, since restaurants and eateries require a little more parking than a typical retail space.
All right, thank you very much. Does anybody else like to speak against this? Yes, ma'am, please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Sonia Canterbury, and I live in Hickory Grove. I've been there for about 8 years. And I've been through the rezoning thing before on the corner to keep the gas station off. We have no idea what's going to go there. We were told that when we moved there, it was going to be offices. Alton Duncan said it will be offices, I promise. Well, a strip center doesn't sound like offices. And I'm very confused. A PUD is a planned unit development, and it's usually residential, different kinds of residential, different kinds of businesses you can put in there if it's a PMUD. How did it get to be a strip mall? Could you explain that to me?
That would have to come from staff, I believe.
The PUD was approved with the 2 commercial in the front and the residential in the back. Strip mall's not quite the right word. Anything approved in neighborhood commercial would be allowed there.
Okay, because all the maps, there's only one map that y'all have that says neighborhood commercial. And it's very confusing. Some of those labels are, the newest one says PUD, and that's what the sign says out there is PUD. And so my question is, how do you modify a PUD to be a strip mall? And we don't know whether what those stores will be or whether they'll be open 24 hours. That's another complaint we had the last time. And the traffic light is not up yet. We've waited, 3 years for the traffic light, and they're still working on it. And the traffic is getting worse. I don't know if you're how familiar you are with that area, but Salmon Road is a cut through to the industrial center down there and the big Blue Cross Blue Shield. So there is a heck of a lot of traffic, and nobody, including the police or anybody else, goes 45 miles an hour in that zone. It is, we've had so many wrecks. I don't know if y'all have checked the number of wrecks and what they were, and luckily nobody's been killed there, but there have been some really bad accidents. And when they put a traffic light up, I'm afraid that they're gonna have more for a while because the truckers come through there. And they're not used to stopping there. There's a lot of factors. I would not like to live on the other side of Catkin Commons where they back right up to whatever it is. So the trash trucks coming, emptying trash in the back, if that's where the back of the buildings are. We'd like to see a layout and have some better idea of, it might be a nail salon, it might be a restaurant, it might be a so-and-so. The last time, as you know, we waited about 8 months to find out another layout, and then they wouldn't tell us what kind of business was going to go there, and it was a Family Mart. And of course, there's no entrance to the Family Mart off of Beaver Run. It's all down Salmon Road. So all the trucks come in down there. It's an interesting place to live, I must tell you.
Thank you. Yeah, don't have any questions for the lady? Yes, Mr. Steve.
I have a question for the applicant
Okay.
or the architect.
If you could please come back up to the podium.
And this may be for staff as well. The fence is, you're planning on leaving the fence there,
Yes,
correct? Through
yes.
this whole
As far as I know, the
process?
fence
Okay, yeah.
belongs to the residential stuff, so we have no dark.
Okay. I just wanted a clarification on that.
That's staying. We figured that just helps with the buffer, even though we're going deeper than is required, we're not gonna take it down now.
I just wanted to just hear it. That's it. Thank you.
Sure.
I have one more. So you don't have a drawing yet or any sort of you don't know if it's going to be 2 or 3
Right now, we're planning
businesses?
on 3 buildings. There's gonna be multiple tenants in each building but we don't have, this early,
Okay.
you don't usually have all your tenants signed up. So they
Right.
have ideas of what they want in there, but they don't have, like, they're gonna probably phase it, build the first one, and if it fills up, then they'll build the second one, type of thing. But we do plan on 3 buildings. And that gives us
And-
more room to have outdoor seating between the two for the,
Right.
for eating, for cafes and such.
So you are leaning more toward restaurant.
It's not only restaurants, but it could be a dentist's office or, any office that wants to come in there. Something that's kind of, it's more to benefit the neighborhood and the area. Like we have the Salmon Road Rec Center where kids,
Right, yes.
the families can just pick up dinner before going home. It's just that sort of a development that we're planning.
Right.
Because if you go further down on Midland Commons, that junction is so congested, it would kind of help.
Yeah, and there's lots of fast food and that kind of stuff if you just go a little bit down the road. So-
Exactly, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Dudley? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna comment on a couple things. On the original site plan that was included in the package, from the original, PUD, that's showing 7,000 square foot buildings. 2 of those actually wouldn't be permitted in, NC. That zoning classification, you can only have 5,000 square foot buildings, which is what they've shown in their plan with 3 of those buildings. They're 5,000 square feet. The second thing is, these would only be allowed to be neighborhood commercial uses. They technically can do that now. Whether we approve or deny this condition, that can be done now, no matter what. They're just asking for a buffer reduction so that they can add in a little more parking and for them to have a little more additional space in between the buildings, for outdoor seating. That's what this is really about, is providing that area. As far as with the PUD and the commercial or strip component to that, it is a planned unit development. Most of the times those do come with a small portion of commercial out parcel in that component. It's typically pretty small, whereas with a planned mixed-use development, the commercial aspect to it is much larger than this. It's gonna be 30 or 40% of the development.
And this is just basically one little part of the bigger originally proposed development, but the residential has already all been built.
Yeah, yes, sir, and I know that some of it is currently being built out. I'm not sure if all of it has been completed yet.
And you mentioned the traffic light work being started on that. Do you know when that's going to be complete?
I do not. That would be a question for engineering, but for that. But I do know that on the north side of Salmon, that the initial work for the road has begun on that side. As far as how long that's going to take, I'm not sure.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Is there any other questions? All righty. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Would a commissioner like to make a motion? Yes, Mr. Steve?
When it comes to REZN 0323-0544, request to rezone 3.10 acres of land located at 6395 Solomon Road. Current zoning is PUD. Proposed zoning is planning unit development, condition change buffers. The proposed use is retail strip center. Make a motion to approve.
Somebody like that second? All right, to all those in favor, raise your right hand. All right, thank you. Thank you. Is there any other business we need to discuss before we adjourn? All right, would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn? All right. So moved. We're adjourned.